Hello and happy Halloween. Welcome to my channel, Meta Tarot. Today I'm going to talk about getting your first deck because a new friend of mine asked me about his new deck, and so I decided that that would be my Halloween reading. And it's such a great time because the veils between the planes of existence are thinner, and it's so much easier to do magical work and all sorts of explorations of the spiritual nature. So, when you get a new deck, you can do a number of things. Some people like to clear the deck right away, figuring that it's been in a factory or whatever. So a few ways to clear a deck would be a bowl of salt. And what I learned was that it's good to use something that's clear so that the light of this is samadhi. And samadhi means enlightenment. So what I do when I clear a deck this way is I just kind of, I don't know if you can see that. I put in all the cards and I kind of move the salt around them, so I'll sort of shuffle these. This is the Hansen deck, which I use when I go to the crystal shop for readings, and so this deck actually needs to be cleansed because there's just a lot happening in the crystal shop, and I'm reading for clients, and so folks are touching the cards, and so the decks that I use when I go read in public, I really end up having to clear more than decks that I just use maybe at home with friends and for myself and for my cat Samadhi. So that's kind of, I would probably do more with this. I probably will later. You can clear with salt. Salt is always purifying, and I don't know, I usually like to leave things out for like a day. I know one time I wanted to try an experiment with a deck, and so I wrapped it up in all these little like crystals, quartz crystals, and I wrapped it in felt, and then I put it in a velvet bag, and I put it away for about a year, and then it was beautiful. It was magical. You certainly don't need to do that. Another thing you can do is you can sage it. Here's my sage wand. So you just light it and kind of, you can do one card at a time, and that's sort of a nice meditation. You can look at the card, kind of vibe the picture and the energy of the card, and start getting to know your deck a little bit. And then I know some people like to do things like put quartz crystals on a new deck, and maybe get a slab of some stone to put underneath. That's a good thing to do too. So when you get a new deck, it comes with a book, and maybe you've purchased the book, and it kind of depends on how you work. I'm going to take out, I'll show you this deck. This is the Voyager Tarot, and I don't use this one very much. It's very, very yang. I love it. I mean, the people who made it obviously really cared about what they were doing, and the images, well, they're all like collages, and the images are really nice. So it's just, I don't gravitate towards it much. So when you get a new deck, you don't necessarily need to clear it right away, and probably you're going to be really excited about your new first deck. So So here it is. So I think when I was first starting to learn to read cards, I would get a new deck and I would shuffle. And well, I suppose really my first deck, I was just completely mesmerized. I mean, I was 12 years old and I had been reading for a while, and so it was just lovely to get my own deck. So I would suggest just really taking the cards as they come up, and maybe even making that random, like you can shuffle and whoops. So it's good to, I think, focus on just your feelings about the card, and you can maybe take a couple that you're most drawn to. Like I just flipped over the Man of Cups, and I don't know what else. I'll just pick 3, kind of random. 7 of Crystals, and then the Lover's card. So maybe I would just sit here and take one at a time and just see what I feel about the different cards. Before I go to the book, I really suggest focusing on being an intuitive card reader first, and just checking out your feelings and understanding that there are 4 elements that tarot cards follow. They're based on the 4 elements. And so cups relate to water, pentacles relate to earth, swords relate to air, and wands relate to fire. Though in some decks, those associations are switched for swords and wands. And so you might want to check that out with your deck, because sometimes they're switched, but mostly swords relate to the mind and speech and communication, and wands relate more to fire and spirituality and motivation and willpower and things like that. So, and you could do with that with the whole deck. I think it's good to spend really a little bit of time just getting to know the deck. My cat really loves me, and I love her. So I think it's good to just get to know the deck before really involving yourself with the book. The book is great for helping you learn the system of the cards, and really what ends up as being your own unique reading style is your interpretation, because there are many psychic readers in the world, and people have very, very different interpretations, even of the same card, the same reading. There can be very different interpretations, and it is fun to get together with a number of different readers and see what everybody thinks about a reading, and it can sometimes be quite funny, actually. Especially when everybody has their deck and they're about, I don't know, 300 cards out, 300 cards available for reading, so that's kind of funny. So I very much suggest seeing what your spirit tells you about the cards that you're most drawn to first, and to just not worry about the book so much, because what I think the goal is to be somebody who's developing their intuition, and that's I guess that might even be a bias, but I believe that working with the tarot and astrology and runes all is really there to help us develop our indwelling knowledge, or our skill with interpretation. And we are able to help ourselves and the rest of the world in this way, and it's just good. And I know some folks really like to study. Like, I'm a Virgo, and I really like to study. So I will sit there with all sorts of books when I am learning something, and I did do that with when I was learning, and all the materials were my sister's, which was interesting. And she ended up not being interested in, she's a doctor now, so she's not a reader. But she does know, some really useful things, I'm sure. So that is what I would suggest. I would suggest spending some time with the cards, even meditating with them some, like really just sitting with them and breathing. And you can ask Spirit for help with interpretations. That's a good thing to do. I know a lot of readers like to start by saying, tell me what I need to know. Or in the instance of working with a client, readers will say, tell me what is in this person's best interest. Tell me what I need to know that is in this person's best interest. So you can ask things of your cards, and you can ask things of your readings. So, and then I think once you've felt out the cards, and it's just so tempting to read the little books, like this is the little book that comes with the Voyager Tarot deck that I showed you before. And that's great. I think as much of that as you need to do is fine. And I also really suggest, when you want to read for others, try to get away from the book as much as possible. So it's good to maybe sit down with friends, and if you need to read with the book, like you could do that with friends and maybe have conversations about the readings and the placements of the cards, etc., etc. And I really do think that moving from that to reading professionally, you have to leave the books behind. I went to this lovely reader one time, I just felt like it, and she read from the book to me, and I didn't want to be unkind, so I asked why she was reading from the book, and I'm not sure what she said, but it's pretty standard if you're working professionally to not read with the book. However, there are some systems like the Sabian symbols. There are 360 of them. It is challenging to remember all of them and the exact degree and the exact keyword, etc., etc. But everybody's different. You do what you want. No harm, no judgment. So, and also, I also advise, maybe just after exploring the cards and learning the Celtic Cross and the Celtic, you can look that up online for the tarot spread, the Celtic Cross, because it's pretty traditional. And I've been thinking about this, that it is actually somewhat complicated and somewhat arcane, its origins and its use. And I don't always use it. I use it when I'm sitting down with somebody who would like a more in-depth reading, and a lot of times people show up and they have a question on their mind, and so I use different spreads for that. But if somebody has scheduled an hour reading, I will usually start with the Celtic Cross or a derivative of it, just if they have a really specific question. That's the one I would start out with, and I guess there are a couple of other spreads that I like, but in terms of really having flexibility and getting what you need out of a tarot reading, I think the Celtic Cross is probably one of the better ones, because it shows you many aspects of a situation and what's going on, and there's a placement for friends and family or outside influences, so you can get a clear read on that if that's part of your question. And usually for most of us, what's happening with everyone is part of our question, so it's usually not just what's happening with us. Okay, happy Halloween. I hope that was helpful, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and if you're interested in a reading with me, my email is down below this video. Thank you so much.